Coding University, training humans to train themselves. Okay, today I want to talk about level two or level two training. Just a little bit. If you go to the park, you might see a bunch of women huddled together talking about their children or baby problems, and these women are paying attention. They're listening. You know, someone says, "Well, I had this problem." They said, "Oh," and they, "Well, I had that same, and I did this." They're paying attention because they're listening, getting the knowledge, but then saying, "What can I do with this?" Starting to picture how it might work for them. They're at level two, looking to see what they can do to solve some of their problems. Okay, if you if you look at salespeople, a lot of times good salespeople are said to spend a few hours prepping. And one of the things they're doing is they're going through their presentation and they're looking at all the possible scenarios of what might happen, seeing themselves being successful because they did this or because they did that, seeing those things that they needed to do to get them to get accomplished. Now, Dwight D. Eisenhower once indicated, I can't remember exactly what he said, but that plans are useless, but planning is everything. In other words, what he was basically saying is that you need to go into all these different little situations and strategize, figure, and see yourself being successful. Okay, I can see myself, I do this, this, and this. See yourself being successful. See, that's what we're going for. Seeing ourselves being successful in our development of ourselves and growing ourselves to becoming a better person. And that's what we want to do. We want to go into all these situations and see ourselves and not just get, I mean, many people go to conferences and just get the knowledge, but they don't get and put it into what can I do? How can I really apply this and what can I actually get going maybe tomorrow or the next day and see themselves doing it. So, you know, plans useless, knowledge is useless, but planning or figuring out what you're going to do with that knowledge, that's everything. Okay, so now one of the other things we want to talk about a little bit, because this is the challenge, is if you read Alan Carr's book, The Easy Way to Stop Smoking, it is the most boring book you've ever read because he talks about 40 plus situations and they're all basically the same situation over and over again. I mean, here he says, you go, basically it's like, you're going to go into a situation, it's going to be challenging. You're going to do this and you're not going to smoke. He does it over and over 40 times. And it's like, geez, Alan, aren't you going to give us something new here? And it's like, no. But see, it's just like with the women at the thing there. It's like, putting their baby to sleep or doing this or whatever or feeding them. It's the same thing over and over. But every situation is just a little different. And what do you do in that little situation that's there? I mean, if husbands were come to listen to these women's talk, they would be so bored out of out of their mind, right? They'd be crying. Okay, but it's sort of like women watching football, right? They hike the ball, then they either run or they throw. What's the big deal here? This is like being a guy. Oh man, but he did this and that. It's the details where they see it happening, but it's happening for you personally. Is what we're really talking about with level 2 training. So, it's often noted that chess players will, really good ones, will go back and review the chess games of, successful people that have really taken on really challenging matches, and they'll review. They're going through, what happened here? Why did this happen? They're seeing it. What could this mean to me? Where could I take this? They're looking to see how it works, and specifically how it could work for them. Let's see, what do I do here? Mark Twain wrote a book, and in part one of the books, he talks about his trip up the Mississippi River. Now, the Mississippi River is notorious for being dangerous because the water runs down and it moves the sand. And then these riverboats would run up the river. If they ran into the sand, of course, it'd be really damaged. So you had to read the river. And he talks about how the river is a story, but can you imagine how boring that book is? But to him, it was a story that just was exciting and never changed, and that's how he talks about it. But can you imagine reading a river? Oh boy, over here's a sandbar, over here's not. It's like it's got to be a boring. I mean, but just like guys with wives talking about how to take care of their kids, or yeah, I mean, you got the idea. See, this level 2 training is only interested to the person that's going through it. And other than that, it is boring, 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 because it's the same thing over and over with slightly different details, slightly different this. They say, the devil is in the details, but that's the truth here. Is that it's in those little things that you pay attention to that really count, and that's where you put in those little emotional things that make it yours. That, I mean, when mom does her chocolate chip cookies, she puts in this, does that, she puts in love here, because that's what makes her family love her cookies or her cooking or whatever it is. So it's level 2 training. You want to get it that is it might sound like it's boring, and just like practice is boring, but it's not. I mean, practice can be so exciting, like Mark Twain's River, if you start seeing where it's going, what it's doing. So with Vicoding University, Vicoding, you're gonna be reading it 2,000 words a minute, or understanding written material 2,000 words a minute. I mean, where's that going to take your life? And you can not only do that, but you can actually take a book like Alan Carr's book and get into those situation after situation at 2,000 words per minute. Or you can get into these multiple situations faster and faster, so you can see, what can I do with that? What can I do with that? And as we start to talk more about silent training or silent thinking as well, you'll see how that also can speed up a lot of things as well. Anyway, boring books that are real fascinating to those going through those challenges. That's what level 2 training is like. By Coding University, training humans to train themselves.